Then good morning for people joining from various parts of the world. It's a privilege to come and just speak very briefly about this. It's good not to be a very long session, but it's an opportunity for us to have a conversation about something I've mentioned at various points about workplace romance. I'm sure many people wonder what's my business with workplace romance. Why should anybody be bothered about workplace romance, and why should it be an issue for discussion? Um, I will just wait for a couple of minutes for people to join me, and then for us to have a very interesting and engaging conversation. Remember, the conversation is about workplace romance or romance in the workplace. And the title is What Workplace Romance, What Every Manager and Employee Should Know. I'm sure for many of you, you'll be wondering, so why should we be bothered about this? We should be bothered because it's an important thing. Quite a lot of things happen in the workplace. So, by way of introduction and to try to set the context for this conversation, I'll just mention a couple of things to start. The first is that if you notice, the title is Workplace Romance. So it's not sexual harassment. The subject is not sexual harassment. So we're not dealing with any wrong behavior or any illegal behavior. Remember, sexual harassment is a crime and a civil offense. So in the case of workplace romance, it depends on the context. So we're not talking about sexual harassment. We're talking about workplace romance. Secondly, we are describing workplace romance, not office romance, because there's a sense in which people feel that office and workplace are the same. Now, a workplace is where work takes place, and that's why the subject is workplace romance, not just office. So, an office is a workplace, a factory is a workplace, a sports field is a workplace for those that work there. A hotel is a workplace for employees who go on training together and go retire to the hotel. So when I use the word workplace, I'm describing it to mean anywhere work is done. The staff bus is a workplace. The church provided or the mosque provided in the workplace is a workplace. Once work is there, then there could be sexual harassment or there could be, sorry, workplace romance. And by the third thing I want to mention is the fact that by workplace romance, I'm describing any romantic or love relationship in the workplace. And so you're going to ask me, so this workplace thing, I mean, is it really a problem? I'm just going to mention a couple of names that you can relate with that have been involved in workplace romance that became public and became scandalous. President Bill Clinton was the president of the U.S. government of the U.S. He was a great president. He did his best. But then there was an incident with Monica Lewinsky, who was somebody that was an intern in the White House. He became bad, was impeached, though he was not removed from the office. It's a case of workplace romance. That's an example I believe you can relate with. And that didn't happen to a young person, so to a small person. It happened to the president of the U.S., perhaps the most influential or powerful man in the world. You remember this particular case because I remember somebody was saying that this workplace romance you're talking about, what has it got to do with sport? I posted in the sport forum and I told the person that you remember the case of John Terry. John Terry was a captain of America of the national team of the US, of England. He was a captain and he got romantically involved. No, he was alleged he was romantically involved with the ex-girlfriend of a team member. Please note, ex-girlfriend of a team member, and he was removed as captain because the team manager said he wouldn't take that in his team. So in this place, this is sports, and somebody getting the captainship badge removed for him, not because he was romantically involved with the wife of a with the ex-girlfriend. To tell you how it could actually be horrible. Of course, you know the case of David Petraeus, the CIA CEO, that was also involved with one staff at work. He had to resign because of that. Can I talk again about another example I can give you on CNN? Jeff Zucker, who was their CEO, he had to resign because he did not disclose sexual his romantic relationship with somebody else. Steve Easterbrook in McDonald's also had to resign his job because of the fact of cases of sexual. Sorry, why do I keep talking about sexual? about romance in the workplace. I just gave you these examples. Now, you may be wondering, all the examples you gave me are things that happen in Canada and things that happen in England and things that happen. Yes, I didn't give you the example of Canada. The German John, the major, the former mayor of the city of Toronto, also during COVID was romantically involved with another worker, and then he became and he had to resign. You tell me, okay, all the examples you gave are from Canada, USA, and England. Is there any Nigerian example? I am going to tell you one as I go on. You'll be shocked how the story went, and this is not that. So, question is, and then so you can realize that workplace romance happens in various settings, and there will be a lot of implications. So what are the various types of workplace romance? Because when we talk about workplace romance, people quickly think about, oh, one person dating a colleague and that's all, or two married people. There are different types of workplace romance, different kinds, different contexts, different circumstances that influences whether people would whether we should qualify as workplace romance. And we can have various ways to categorize them. I think I have like 7 different ways we can categorize the various types of sexual of office romance. Actually, based on my categorization, there are over 20 types of workplace romance, 20 different forms, but I put them under categorization. One is the first categorization I want to mention is workplace romance that we want to categorize based on whether it's open or not. And under it, we have 4 types. One is married people who work in the office. So a man and his wife are married and they work in your office. It's also office romance, workplace romance. So if you say you have a policy on workplace romance, you must also have a policy on that because they are married. So in this case, it's open, it's legal, and everybody's aware. It's Mr. John and Mrs. John working in the same organization. What are you going to do about that? So that's one form of it. The other form of it that it is open but is not yet formalized. So in this case, you have two singles who are engaged to be married working in your organization. So you have John and Abraham and Mary. You have Musa and Shetima, whatsoever, who are engaged to be married. So it's open. We all know about it. We know they are getting married, but they are not yet married. That's another type. It's different from the married one. Another type under categorization is a secretive one, when they don't want people to know. So in this case, it could be a married man at work going out with another married person at work. Now, they don't want you to know about it. Remember, in the first 2 cases, they want you to know about it, right? And then there are various forms. So that's when we want to categorize them under openness. The second thing is that we can also have categorization based on the number or the people involved in the relationship. And I think we have about 6 different types. One is 2 people in your office are in a romantic relationship. It could be husband and wife, it could be people planning to get married, it could also be people who are having illicit relationships. So 2 people. It could be another form of that, it could be more than 2 people, wherein there is A going out with B, and then there is also C going out with B. Or there is A going out with B and C at the same time, right? It happens if you know what I'm saying in the workplace, right? So you could have more than one person. Number 3, you could also have a case between somebody in the workplace and somebody connected to the workplace. So, for example, your employee is going out with a supplier, your employee is going out with a regulator. It's still workplace romance, and you need to have policies. You need to be conscious of that, right? You have a case of your employee going out with your major supplier or a regulator. So give the example of NNPC, or give the example of the police. Can a police person go out with somebody who is a criminal? So those are the kind of thing. There's also another category of an employee organization going out with a member of the family of somebody in your organization. Do you understand? So John works in your organization, but John is going out with the daughter of somebody else in your organization. If you have watched How to Kill a Monkey, you know what I'm talking about, right? Between Obuza and the daughter of Ife. So that's the kind of thing I'm describing. So you're not going out with your colleague, but you're going out with the family of the person or the spouse of the person. Another form of it is when somebody in your workplace is going out with a rival, right? So MTN and Echo and V-Mobile, or I don't know, Airtel are rivals in Nigeria, for example. Can somebody in your organization be going out with somebody in that other organization? Can somebody in KPMG be going out with Price Waterhouse? Right? That's another form of workplace relationship you need to be conscious of. What about a relationship between someone in your organization and a criminal, a convicted criminal? It's still a workplace relationship that you may need to be conscious of, because there was a court case like that in Canada that I'm going to describe later. Or whether it's a relationship between somebody and a criminal who has harmed the organization before. So in the case I'm going to describe, this lady was going out with an armed robber that has robbed the bank before. Would you allow it? Right? So that's based on the parties. There's also the part of workplace romance that is either sanctioned by the employer or not sanctioned by the employer. Please, let's not deceive yourself, because when we had all those Cold Stone episodes, people were like, "Oh, it's bad." They are employer sanctioned workplace romance. If you don't believe me, one of Nigeria's richest men, and perhaps one of the richest men in Africa, Mr. Femi Otedela, just released a book. In the book, he wrote that there were banks that mandated female employees to come after him so that he can get credit from them. They wanted favor from Mr. Otedola. The bank, I'm not making this up. The bank sent females to come and have romantic relationship with him. So that's a kind of workplace office, right, wherein it is the employer that is mandating romance. Right? You must also think about that, because everybody tries to play the righteous person and say, no, no, no. Sometimes some employers have asked their employees to go after somebody that they want business for. You can also think about the various types of workplace romance wherein you are dealing with what is the nature of relationship between the two people in the organization. So you have two categories between peers. So accountant one is going out with accountant B. Typically, you are not so concerned about that. An intern is going out with an intern. A new hire is going out with another new hire. Maybe you're not too bothered about that. But then again, the one that gets us very much rallied is when there is a relationship between the subordinate and the manager, right? So you are dealing with the supervisor and all of that. So that could be there. You could also have cases of, does it impact you or does it not impact you? Because I mean, if you have an intern who came to spend 6 months in your organization, for example, and the two of them were going out, so maybe they were in the university and the two of them were going out, and then they come to do internship with you for 6 months, why are you going to get bothered about them? Right? Or maybe some co-op said that came to spend 3 weeks or 4 weeks with you. So there is also the question on the impact on the organization, because I've seen some organizations says you must report all relationship, and so why are you bothering yourself with people who are there for you for 2 weeks, right? There's also the set of workplace romance that could be prohibited by law, right? So, for example, there are some codes of conduct or professional practice that outlaw some kind of workplace romances. So, for example, doctors, care providers, university lecturers, teachers typically have laws, rules, guidance that says they cannot go out to have romance with some category of people. So you could have that. You could also have things that come from the duty of care, or issue about oversight, whether you have oversight over the person, and then what could mar the professional judgment of the person. So I want you to think about this. An auditor was sent by a company to go to audit a firm, and because the auditor stayed with there for a long period of time, he started going out with the CEO of the firm. It's office romance, but it could impact the judgment of the auditor. So I spent this time to describe the almost 20 different types of workplace romance for you to understand the different kinds of workplace romance. So if you are bothered as an employer, you must ask yourself, what do I need to do to ensure that I do my best to get people to do the right things, or not to get me into trouble. So what I'm going to quickly do now is I'm going to just talk about a couple of decided law cases for you to understand that these are real issues. So because when we talk about workplace fraud, we're not just talking about what people should just think, oh, okay, it's just those things that happen, but real issues that we need to have a conversation with. There was a court case that was just decided in Nigeria a couple of months ago, but it's 2025. The case went from a court martial to a court of appeal. The court martial was in Jos, Nigeria. We went to a court of appeal and went to the Supreme Court. What happened in this case? It's Cornet Ibrahim versus the Nigerian Army. You can search for this case on Google. The decision was just released by the Supreme Court. We just reported. What happened in this case? This was a colonel in the Nigerian Army. Colonel, that's an officer. The colonel was going out with the wife of a junior officer. Now, that was not what led to the court case or led to the court martial. The colonel, at a point, accommodated the wife of a junior staff. So the colonel was living in his official quarters. He accommodated the wife of a junior staff for 1 week, right? And then he purportedly conducted an Islamic marriage with that woman, right? And then the junior officer reported to the army, and the army organized a court martial, and the soldier, the colonel, was asked to leave the army and was dismissed dishonorably. Think about this. So in this case, it's not the army officer, the colonel was going out with another colonel or an army officer. It was going out with the wife of a junior officer. Because, and he appealed the case and lost and appealed to the court because there were laws in the Nigerian army establishments, there were laws about Nigeria that says that a soldier, right, who behaves, the word used here is in a scandalous manner, right? Any soldier that behaves in a scandalous manner, and it says anything that is not befitting of a gentleman is guilty of an offense and shall be dismissed. So the court martial said, letting the wife of your junior colleague live in your house for over a week is scandalous and not befitting of a gentleman. Leave the Nigerian army. And that's how the guy was dismissed. So in this case, the workplace romance was not about him having romance with a staff. It was with having the wife of a staff. And the laws of the Nigerian army have said some behaviors are called scandalous. If you are involved, you're going to be asked to leave the army and be dismissed. Also, there is also the Nigerian army law that says that an army officer should respect the family of other family officers, of other army officers. So on the basis of those two laws, this man was found guilty and was sent from there. This is a colonel of the Nigerian army. Another case I want to mention is the case about this case is one of the most ridiculous for me. It's about one radio presenter called Gian Gionesh. I was 47 years as of when this happened. It was a very popular radio presenter in Canada. He works with CBC. There were stories about him getting involved with some form of sexual romantic issues. So CBC, his employer, sacked him. Now, CBC now did an investigation and realized that there were people in the organization that knew about it. They didn't do any other thing. So CBC now suspended the executive officer and also the director of HR. So think about it. An employee was involved in some romance situation. He was sacked. The employer did an investigation and realized that the CEO and the HR knew about it and didn't do anything. So they sacked the two of them too. Then the employee that was sacked, right? The employee that was sacked now sues for wrongful disposal. So that was the first case against the employer. The guy that was sacked for this romance issue sued the employer, right? You remember the employer now also sued HR and the CEO for not taking action. Those two also sued the employer. Now let me tell you the one that will really get you surprised. When they sacked the HR head for not taking action, the person they hired to replace this individual, somebody called Serena Tedani Anthony, was later sacked, and he also sued CBC. So on one single office romance action, CBC faced 4 lawsuits that total over $3 million. just on one case. And why am I bringing this case up? There's a lot of things that my colleagues as HR people do, and they'll just say, no, we'll just terminate the person. And I'm like, hey, but you don't really know how this thing can turn out. So in this case, you terminated someone, the person sued you for wrongful termination, then you terminated the HR leader and the CEO, then the two of them sued you, then the person you now use to replace the HR leader then sues you later. 4 court cases because of one single action. It's very important. Okay. I'm going to mention another case. Raleigh versus Steel case, Canada. It was about somebody having a sexual romantic relationship with the wife of a colleague. Interestingly, it was hacked, and unfortunately, what has happened is that the court said in this particular case that when the husband or when the spouse heard about it, he didn't take action on time, and therefore he's not worthy of being asked to go. What is also interesting is that one very popular case, and I would like everybody who operates in North America, Canada, Nigeria, Canada, USA, and of course Nigeria, because you could apply it. There is a Dooley versus Weber case. It was decided in 1994, where an employee was involved in office romance with different employees. So this guy was a senior executive. He was involved with many of his subordinates, right? And then the employer did not have a sexual harassment policy, and then they warned him verbally that he should stop going out with his direct reports and people that work for him. He didn't listen, and then they terminated his appointment, and he sued his employer and won. The court said the employer does not have the right to determine whether a person should have sexual relationship with another person. This was a case decided in Canada. You can get it out. Dooley versus Weber Limited, 1994. That's what the court said. At the court, you cannot say this person cannot have a romantic relationship with his direct report, particularly when it's not in your policy. You only told him verbally. So, what are the issues that we need to get involved with? And as I start to look for opportunities to start to round off, first thing we need to think about is that workplace romance is risky. We need to accept that. It's risky in various dimensions. Number one, workplace romance is risky to the parties involved, right? So John is going out with Mary. There are risks. So think about that. Secondly, there are risks to the organizations, right? The organization gets exposed to risks because of this workplace romance. So that's something you want to think about. There's risk when the romance is going on. There's risk if the romance ends, right? Big risk if the romance ends. It's also important for employees to be conscious about these issues. Number one is, hey, as an employee, I'll just mention 4 things for employees to be conscious of. Please, number one, romance can happen in the workplace and you can be involved. You'll just be surprised you just found yourself there. So you work somewhere, you have somebody of the opposite sex, you are not really necessarily interested in the relationship, but you get to work together. You go for lunch together. You take the same staff bus. Your children attend the same school. Before you know it, some relationship may start to develop from there. So be conscious as an employee. Just be conscious because of the fact that it's your interest to know what is happening. So consciousness is very, very, very important. So secondly, I want to tell all employees watching this is a question of understand your company policy on office romance. So what does the policy say? Do you even have a policy on office romance? You must understand it so that you don't get yourself on the wrong side. And number 3 is follow whatever the policy says. If the policy is not well written or it's not written well, still follow whatever the policy says and don't get yourself in trouble, and then understand your risk. If you decide to be romantically involved with somebody at work, understand the fact that you know what you're getting with. So that's for employees. For employers, it's important, because HR supports employers. It's also important for us to know that this workplace romance things can happen. Don't let us stop playing. When the Coldplay incident came up, people said being sanctimonious and trying to claim that they have some reasons to to feel that some people are more righteous than others. Please, as an employer, if adults work together, they will likely get involved romantically. It's just a reality of life. Number two is you have to develop your stance. Please note, many organizations rush to write policies. First, define your stand. What exactly is your stance? Because I realized that after the Cold Stone case, many organizations started to write HR policies that included workplace romance. But when you read those, but these people really didn't. They didn't really rigorously ask questions before they wrote those policies. So that's why I said before you write the policy, take a stance. Do you want to be involved in romantic issues in the workplace? That's the first question you should ask. Because when you write policy and says employees should report when they are involved in whatever, that means you have decided to be involved. But do you want to be involved? You need to first ask yourself that question. Because if you don't answer that question, you're going to get yourself into more trouble because of the policy you have written. So take a stance. Do we want to be involved? Do we don't care? Do we want to be there? So ask that question. Number three is that develop a policy based on the stance you have taken. We don't want to be involved. Don't just live with it. We want to be involved. Then write a policy that say when people want to go out, they must inform you. And that's one of the funny things. I was reviewing one company's policy. They said that if an employee is involved, they should notify the company. And I was like, so at what point do you notify the company? Is it when the man or the woman toasts the man that you go and say, oh, HR, please, they have toasted me. Should I say yes or no? Or when you have started, then that's when you tell them. Or when, that policy was not well situated. So you must have, you need to determine yourself what kind of policy you have. You want to have a dedicated policy, or you don't want to make it as part of your conflict of interest policy. Because those are two separate issues, right? You may want to just present it that, okay, I have a conflict of interest policy, and these are the conflicts of interest I want to avoid. And you just have a section under it. I think that's a safer thing to do at the end of the day. Biodun Tajudin is asking a question about the role of human rights and privacy. That's my next session. You're just so spot on. So I'm going to talk about that now. Follow your policy and then understand it. So let's talk a bit about the policy. Yeah, this one gets me excited. Let's talk a bit about the policy. First thing, remember, there's what is called human rights. Your company policy does not override human rights. In Nigeria, for example, I have a fundamental right by law to go into relationship. I have freedom of association. That freedom of association says I can decide to join ASU, I can decide to join a political party, I can decide to join a church, I can decide to join anything that is legal. Now, because I have a right, a freedom of association, I also have a right to associate with my colleague. Now, the question you want to ask me that, is romantic relationship not a form of relationship? It is. So you cannot by law outlaw what the law gives me the right to do. That's why in virtually all the countries I review, and on a regular basis, I review laws in Nigeria, I review laws in Canada, I review laws in the UK, in Europe, and in the US. I am not aware of organized laws that you can use to say the law says I can do it. No, I know many employers will say we do not encourage employees to be involved in office romance. But that's based on what? Is that based on morality? Is that based on expectation, or what is right to do? Right? You must ask yourself, and that's why you saw all the cases I reviewed. A good number of those cases, the employee won the case because you can do it as an employer doesn't mean you should do it. So the first thing, that respect human rights. Related to that is a question of respect, privacy, and confidentiality. So if somebody in your office is romantically involved with somebody, that person has a right to privacy. Please note that. So you cannot be involved as HR and start to say, hey, they said you two of you are going out. Remember, they have a right to privacy. And this is where some companies will have policy that says when an employee notices there's a romantic relationship, they can report to HR. Please be careful. Those people going out, they have a right to privacy. They have a right to confidentiality. As HR, you must know your limits. Number three, you must also realize that you have the power to demand disclosure. So I have said you do not have the power to say people can associate, but as an employer, you have a right to demand disclosure. But in doing that in your policy, you must ask a couple of questions. Who should do the disclosure? Is it both of them, separately or jointly? Your policy must say so. When should they do the disclosure? Is it at the point of start or when the relationship has matured? You must define that because you said they should disclose. So if you say they should disclose, they'll say this organization does not support romantic relationship between employees. However, where it's a clause, you are expected to report to some. So you must ask. So when are we going to do that? Is it when the man or the woman tells the other? So are we? Is it so? If it's a man and a woman relationship, right? If the man has disclosed, does the woman have a right? Does the woman also have a responsibility to also disclose separately? You must define that. Please also ask yourself that simple question. If they are in a relationship and the man or the woman comes to you privately to disclose it, are you going to be violating the privacy of the other party who has not reported to you? It's very, very important we know what the law says and we are not there. Also, please make sure your policy determines who do you report to. Because the assumption is that you say, okay, if you're in a relationship, please disclose. You are expected to disclose to the company. Who is called the company? So your policy must define who the report should go to. Please don't assume it should go to HR because HR itself may be the one involved in the relationship. You remember the Cold Stone case was with the head of HR. Interestingly, shall I surprise you? I read a report recently, a research of the department where people are involved in most workplace relationship. Should I shock you? Number one, HR. The study found that HR people are the ones that are most involved in office romance. Are they the same people you want them to go and report to? So you must ask, when you report, so who do you report to? You must define a policy. You must also define what happens after they disclose in your policy. What happens? So somebody comes say, I'm in a relationship with this person. What do you do? I will want to suggest 4 things if you want to do disclosure. Number one is immediately there's a disclosure, you must do what is called a conflict of interest review. So, for example, you want to determine, do they work together? Are they supervisors? Are they likely to influence anything for the sake of all that? Is there a reporting relationship? That's the first thing you do once you are told. Secondly, after you are told, is that you must make the changes. So you realize that it's a supervisor and that, okay, can you move one to the other? Please note, there is this assumption, and sometimes these things happen because people don't actually go around to check what the law really says. People say, if a supervisor and a subordinate are going out, you must separate them. I have worked in an organization where the husband and the wife are specialist skills, and the wife reports to the husband. There is no way you will move both of them to because their skill is unique. I have been in aeroplanes where ideally the first officer and the captain are not supposed to be elected, and I've been in aeroplanes where a father and the daughter are the ones there. When you say you hire the pilot and they are married, and one is the captain and one is the first officer, you say you should move them. Where are you going to move the captain to? You have spent millions of dollars, millions of naira, or thousands of dollars to train her. Where you go to? So sometimes you can't move because the general assumption, once they're in a romantic, you must move. Sometimes you can't move because they are specialist skills. Your 2 surgeons are going out, right? Your 2 brain surgeons are going out. Where are you going to move the brain surgery to? You're going to tell her to start to do surgery of the leg? No. You just need to learn to manage the relation. So sometimes you can't make changes because of the peculiarity. But if you can make changes, make the change. The next thing I think you should do if they disclose is make them to sign what is called a relationship agreement. So it's an agreement the employer will write to say, I so and so and I so and so, we're in a consensual relationship, we are adults, we have consented to this, we are interested in this, and then you will not also have a clause in the agreement where they will say, in case the relationship goes south, we will not retaliate, we will not take advantage, we will not do that. Please, you must ensure they sign that. And that's why I keep telling companies, this idea of you asking me to come and report. So if I report to you, And you once and you know the funniest thing, once I reported to you, anything I do after that, you can't use against me because I've told you. You must have that agreement there. Yes, PF, thanks. PF is saying because they are human resources, so they are considered human romances. Okay, oh, PF. If HR catch you, I'm not there. But thanks, I really appreciate that. Okay, so a couple of errors that we need to be conscious of for those of us that run organizations, six, seven of them, and then I'm going to close based on that. One is that we assume that our biggest risk is when managers and subordinates are going out. So we have policies around that. No, it could be anybody. You know the funniest thing? Imagine it's not manager and subordinate, it's employee and supplier, right? Your head of warehouse is going out with your supplier when you're supposed to bring 15 cartons. Because of their relationships, he brings 3 cartons. You're also exposed. So it's don't just focus on managers, focus on the various. I know I've described various types earlier. Focus on the various types of relationships and then be conscious of where you have your most areas of vulnerability. Stop writing policies that is only about employee and direct report. I was involved in a case where it was a general manager that was going out with one of the ground staff. So there was general manager, there is manager, there is something else, then there is this person, and then so there were like 5 layers between this person and the person she was going out with. And then they said, well, the general manager should have reported. General manager said, yeah, the policy says if the person is your direct report, she's not my direct report. She reports to somebody who reports to somebody who reports to somebody who reports to me. So when you write policy and says somebody that is your subordinate, hey, if somebody is 5 person down the line, is she my subordinate? You know you can have a serious argument with lawyers there. So you must define that. Secondly, you must also ask yourself, what do you define as workplace romance? Right? Yes, thanks, Abiodun is saying, or the quality of supplies gets compromised. That's very, very correct. Thanks for contributing that. So how do you define workplace romance? You know, today now, in today's world, in many countries, people will not use the word romance. They will say they are besties. So there was a particular one of the cases I reviewed. The guy came to court and said, "We are not in any romantic relationship. We are only very good friends." And the employer said, "No, the evidence shows that you are in a romantic relationship." And the person said, "Yes, we are very good friends, but we are not in a romantic relationship." So the onus was now the employer to prove it was. So please, how do you prove romantic relationship? As an employer, you claim that you sacked somebody or you took action against somebody because you said it was in a romantic relationship with his direct report. How do you want to prove it? What evidence will you have? Even if they are involved in sexual activity, that does not prove romance. Now that could prove intimacy or intimate action, but it doesn't prove they're in a romantic relationship because it could be a rape. So you want to ask yourself, please, people with some of the cases are real. Somebody came up to openly say we are besties. In the case of the Nigerian Army colonel that I wrote, the lady came and said, "I have divorced my husband," and she hasn't. The family of the girl, of the woman, came to court to say he has divorced the husband, and that's not true. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So you must always be very conscious of that. One other error we also make is that when we don't document what happens after reporting. So somebody has reported to you and you don't document the next action to do. One of the things we should never do is to assume HR is not also involved. Sometimes HR too, they job, no. Sometimes HR is one of the, based on that study I saw, HR is the department that has the greatest number of people having workplace romance. It's just a study I saw. I didn't say I got corroborating evidence, but don't assume HR is not. And based on the story of the Cold Stone video that we also, HR could be involved. In fact, very senior people in HR. Another error we make is that when we want to discipline arising from workplace romance, we treat everybody the same way. So in this case, if you notice, virtually all the cases, all the 5, 6 cases I reviewed, there were 2 things that were very consistent with all the cases where the employer won. The male was a CEO, or the person was in an authority figure. right? So when the person is male and is a CEO, very senior staff, the way it should be treated should be different from a female that is in a less that is a subordinate role, right? Secondly, the role of the person. So there was one particular case where the person argued and said, "Yes, I'm in a romantic relationship, but my job does not get any form of compromise because of that." So think about this. Somebody is in IT, information technology, right? That's where it works, right? It goes into a romantic relationship with somebody in strategy, right? Both of them are in different locations and nothing brings them together. So the person says, "Yes, we're in a romantic relationship, but why I didn't report it was because you said it's direct report." And they said it's not direct report. Please note, you can't treat employees the same way at the end of the day. And finally, the question of third party reporting. So in this particular case, you do not, for example, say people should, you said people, so somebody comes to tell you that A and B are in a romantic relationship. What will you do? Should you call A and B to confirm? If they deny, what will you do? Because don't forget, romantic relationship is difficult to define or to prove. Oh, they said you're always going to eat together. That doesn't mean anything. Oh, they said they saw you coming from your house in the morning. That doesn't still mean anything. So you must be very conscious about this issue about third party reporting. What can third party do and what can third party do? Please note, when you are in a very sensitive position, and I'm making this appeal to those who are senior managers, who are executives, who are politically exposed, please note that there may be a higher demand on you. If you remember in 2023, Toronto Mayor John Tory had to step down because he was involved in with a former staff. And this is even a very unfortunate situation because in this case, the person who was involved has actually left the organization, right? Before the issue came into the public. Please note, let me encourage you, if you assume that you're in a romantic relationship and you say it's secret, nobody will hear, it's not true. Somebody is going to leak it. And this man had won election 2 times. He was on his third term in Toronto, and he had to step down going from it. But don't also forget, we had a clear case of Monica Lewinsky and the president of the USA, where the president denied having any relationship with her. And he was impeached, but he was not removed from power or from office because of the fact that he chose not to. Some other people will have stepped down based on that. So I think that all of us need to be very careful the way we respond to this issue about sexual harassment. So romantic relationship in the workplace. It's not a slam dunk. In fact, one of the cases that I reviewed, the judge clearly said, so in this particular case, the employer was relying on a particular decided case. And the judge said, in each case that involves romantic relationship, there is no consistent way of looking at it. It comes on a case by case. I'm going to read this as far. This is Pierce versus Foster. The judge said, each case must be looked at objectively in the light of facts and as related to the test of current social acceptability. Please, I'm going to read that again. Pierce versus Foster. The judge said, when it comes to relationship between two man and woman particularly, or between two people in the workplace, and it's about romance, each case must be looked at objectively. Number 2, it must be looked at in the light of all the facts. Number 3, and it must be looked at in relation to the test of current social acceptability. That latter part is what I want to talk about. The question of social acceptability. Why did it happen in this particular case? This person, in one of the cases, the person said, in my workplace, many people are involved in romantic relationship and they have not been sacked. Why was I the only one that was sacked? And in that case, the judge said, if that's the case, then you should not be sacked, else it will become discrimination. Because there is a question of social acceptability. When we had a Cold Stone case, when we had a Cold Stone revelation, I told people, I said, listen, this happened in the IT world. I mean, their company is in information technology. The level of morality required there is not the same as somebody who is in a consulting firm, for example, or some front facing that deals with mass market like a CA, or a moral driven organization like a media house, or a religious institution or something like that, right? So the social acceptability may determine how the case will go. So, for example, in some places, they believe it is okay. We had a case of a president of the US, the case of Jacob Zuma. I remember what happened in that case. There was some sense of social acceptability, and that's what determined how the case went. So, the important thing for us to ask ourselves is what exactly are we doing? Are we defining things because of morality? Because sometimes many people feel, oh, okay, this is the moral standard, therefore we should write our policies based on the moral standard. You must ask yourself, particularly if punishment includes people getting to the point where they could be sanctioned, including losing their job, that they may go to court, then you need to be very careful. I'm going to end with the last case. This was a case that's still ongoing, so that's why I can't. There's no conclusion yet. This was a very senior person in a bank in Canada. She was female. She rose very well and very outstanding professional. And then it was revealed that she had a relationship with one of the people in that team, one of the direct reports, and there were allegations that she had favored this guy's promotion, she had favored his advancement, and all manner of things, right? So the bank asked her to go. Yes, the bank asked her to go, and she left. But two things happened. She got another job because some people feel this woman should not be asked to go. She got a job, and the company that hired her announced to the whole world we are hiring her, despite the case. Then the lady went to court and filed a case for wrongful. I think she's suing for I don't know how many hundreds of millions, how many millions. I can't remember what is the exact figures. But she's suing her former employer for asking her to go for a case of a consensual relationship between two adults. And she's not denying that she doesn't have a relationship with the person. She's just saying you can't ask me to go because of that. The case is still in court. Why am I bringing that in? Because think about this. The Cold Stone people that we all saw their video, the man and the woman, felt very sad for them, especially for their families, because of the exposure and all of that happened. But the HR and the employer was not ready for that, right? And it's important for us to just realize, oh, just because people have come to say, oh, A and B are going out, we should therefore ask them to go because we have in our policies. If you ever take action against them, they also have a right to go to court. Yes, Mr. Abiodun Tajuddin, thank you so much for joining. I really love your contribution. You said, I think social acceptability could be driven by cultural factors too. Spot on, sir. Western nations may be different from African nations. Very, very correct, sir. I so much agree with you. For example, I mean, so let's assume an Oyo girl works in the office of the Alaafin, right? I'm not saying in 2025, and they are laughing culturally. They will say only Gbese Lobiri, for example. I'm not putting the context of 2025. I'm putting in context of maybe 1948 or 1965 or thereabouts. And then she Gbese Lobiri of somebody in that place, and the person wants to say you can't. I mean, the Alaafin could go to court to say, hey, the law says, or the culture says, Gbese Lobiri. So just to say that the question of culture also comes to the question of social acceptability. If the culture encourages it. And don't forget, like I said when I started, this session is not about sexual harassment. No, it's about consenting adults, right, in a relationship, but you are concerned about how it could negatively affect your organization. The last thing I want to say is that please keep an eye on married people in your organization. Don't assume that because you are married, you don't have risk as an employer. You still have risk. Because don't forget, if they divorce, it could be worse. Think about this. John and Mary are married. Then they divorced. And they still work in the same organization. How are you going to manage that relationship? Particularly if they are specialists that you need them to be in the same project thing. I remember many years ago, I worked in an organization where we had the lady was a safety person, the husband was the engineer. We knew every time they fought in their marriage when we went to project meetings. Every time they fought, we knew. Because of the fact that, the role of the safety person is to ensure that things are done properly. The way the woman will speak, you will know that she has not been talking to her husband. But this lady is a specialist in that particular kind of construction. So it's not possible to take her away from the project. The guy, that's his project. You can't take him away. So you have to learn to manage. So anytime you see those things, I remember a friend of mine would say, just jab me and say, speaking Yoruba, I want to teach ya. Which means they are fighting. That you can see that. So the team manager, who was very silent, would just say, okay, let's take a break, and then what is now so funny is that when he says that will now confirm these people are fighting. When they say take a break, typically in the project meeting, when they take a break, you don't get out immediately. The husband will storm out in front door, the wife will storm out in the back door, and then each person will go to their office. If the husband and wife are on break, then you should go and either greet your wife or whatsoever you want to do. Everybody will say what has happened. So when we now come back, the project will just say, guys, we need to break this meeting and we're going to convene for tomorrow. And then he now goes to do a caucus meetings with the guy and say, hey, guy, what's happening? I can see you and your wife are not doing it now. Leave that to the manager to handle. That's not HR's business in that case. So I'm giving you that example for you to realize that even when they are married and things are going on well, things can go bad. Whether it's temporary in the case of a disagreement or whether it's the case of a full-blown divorce. But the important thing is for us to ask ourselves, please note, romantic relations can happen in the workplace. Remember, please, and this is my last appeal as I start to round up. If you have any question, please ask your question. Is for those of us who are employees, please watch the risk before you start. I mentioned earlier today that there are laws that say some people should not be involved in romance with some categories of people. I've given you the example of the Nigerian Army law that says so. So if you are in the army, don't do it, because if you do it, you are not going to be only offending the man, you are offending the law. In the case of the colonel I cited in Nigeria, he was sacked. So what does the law say? If you are a lecturer in the university, Obafemi University, I know, and you are University of Ibadan, for example, have strict rules. I teach in an institution in North America. There are rules that says you can't be in a relationship with your students. There are some universities that have those laws. If you know that's the laws there, then don't get involved. You are a doctor. Again, let's go back to how to kill a monkey. Remember that doctor that was going out with you know what your professional whatever it is says about it. So be conscious of that. You are the headmaster of a high school. You can't say you're having a relationship with a teenager that is a student in your school, right? You are an air hostess. Does the law allow you to have a relationship with your pilot? I don't know, but you must count the cost. Is it really worth it? Secondly, the idea of that nobody will know. Please take it out of your mind. People will know. It's just a matter of time. So I'm going to stop on that note. I want to thank everybody that has joined me. Mr. Duro Simieti, thank you very much. I cannot take it for granted. Mr. Big Sam, thank you so much. There's another question from Mr. Samson Motosho Bayomi says, I would like to know the mental impact of romantic relationship in the workplace. It can be either way. Great question, and thanks for asking. It can go either way. So you have a case of somebody, if the relationship is going on well, then that means it's good for the mental health of the people involved. But if there is problem, there is crisis, it could negatively affect their mental health. But please note, romantic relationship in the workplace also influence their colleagues. So if they are doing public display of affection, for example, some people may feel embarrassed, some people may feel uncomfortable with it. So the mental health of everybody could be involved at the end of the day. Oh, yes. Another group that we need to talk about, and thanks, Mr. Esi, for bringing that, is the question of religious leaders. church leaders, mosque leaders, they are also in very sensitive position. And please note, some of them are exposed to some of the worst temptations. And then we have had case some of them that have been involved in romantic relationship with their church members, with the members of their mosque, and have to resign or steps aside for various reasons. But what is important is you need to ask yourself, as an employee, you must ask yourself, is this worth it? So, when as an employer, you are a church leader, you are a mosque leader, you are attracted to a member of staff, you are married, you are not married. Is it worth going into? Because the real question is that you may actually be setting yourself up for big failure and disappointment if you go on. I'm going to remember it, at the particular time in my career, I had to work in a location where you'll be away for your family for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, depending. And many things could happen in that context. You need to ask yourself, do I really want to put myself in this situation that can get me into trouble? At the end of the day, it's for you to do what is right and to ensure you are safe. I want to thank you very specially for joining me. Thank you. I've not seen any other question here. So I would be stopping on this note. Thank you so much and have a nice day.